Okay, today I'm finalising my exhaust build. 3-inch exhaust conversion on my Subaru. It's a GC8 Turbo 2000, but it's got all the usual stuff in it, 6-speed box. The engine's not fully forged, etc. Got a different turbo on it, so a custom turbo install. I've used a Borg Warner, but I've made all the pipe work for it. So obviously it's all made out of stainless. Most of it's recycled actually off of different systems, and I've managed to sort of fashion a fit up, if you like, of a pipe that sort of fits relatively well onto the car. I've got a few extra joints in it just so I can swivel everything round, make it fit a bit nicer before the weld and after the weld. So things can be adjusted, just makes it easier to get on and off. One thing I've always found is having a slip joint up there actually makes it a lot easier. Sorry about all the light coming in through the door. I'm working in half a burnt out workshop here actually. You can just see that. I lit the fire a few months ago, and I'm just making the best of it at the minute. Sort of got to walk around everywhere wearing a mask, and you know, sort of temporary lighting, temporary electrical installation, all the usuals. But anyway, just got to get on with it. I was halfway through building the car when it all happened, and I still need some of the work. So done loads of work to the car, suspension, and rebuilt all the drive shafts, had the gearbox rebuilt. Got a roll centre adjusting kit from Super Pro. What is it? Short ratio, different ratio steering rack in there. So whatever they call it, the quick rack. So it's like 2 1/4 turns or something. And can't wait to try that out. And sort of adapted exhaust manifold with that pipe. So all the usuals on the car, and I've done a lot to the bodywork. I've got a load more to do just because these cars are getting old now, but I've done loads to it underneath just to get it all clean. I like to get it to try and fly through the MOT, because I just do, you know, used to work in a garage where you get cars coming in all the time that are rusty and that, and people expected them to pass. I don't really like being like that, so try and get everything up together, get it clean enough, you know, make sure it's at least just surface rust. Right, okay, so back to the exhaust. Like I say, I spent quite a long time trying to get it to follow the car nicely. The underneath of the car, the standard route. I've got Haywood and Scott centre section in there, straight through, straight pipe, no resonator, no cat. I do have a whole cat section made for this car, come a certain time of the year, should we say. So I've got 2 brand new Magnaflow cats in there that I've fabricated into a system. All fits up really nice onto the different turbo back where the downpipe usually be, and I've got a centre section cat as well. So the car would have had 2 cats originally. As any Subaru owner would know, they scrape a pass at best. Even when they were quite new, they weren't brilliant. I remember when the cars weren't that old, I just sort of started working on cars, early 2000s, and they were never perfect, and especially in any state of tune after the standard, they were never good really. So yeah, so I've made a multi-cat system, and obviously dialed that into the link engine management that I've got on there as well. So the thing sort of idles 14.7 to 1, and it all, you know, it's not, I've not added too much fuel on the blip for the MOT map, and it levels out nicely at 14.7 to 1. And the cats work well. They do run at about sort of 300-ish degrees, I would say, to 400. You know, bouncing between, depending how hard you rev it, how long you rev it. But yeah, it works like a standard system. So, you know, I'm not worried when it comes MOT time, basically. No favours. Things are only getting harder with MOTs. especially with these sort of cars. So it's worth spending some time on that stuff rather than just put a straight bit of pipe out the back of the car. A lot of the time I'm only planning to use this car on the track anyway, just taking it out for a bit of fun every now and again. I've had it for a few years now, it doesn't really owe me anything, so I just sort of tinker about in it. Most of the body's clean, it's cleaner than most you'll see. Most of them, the arches and that are rotten out of them now. I've had to do the turrets and some of the sills, some of the sill on each side, so it's not too bad. Yeah, so we go to the back, got the jack in the way, but as you can see I've got another joint there just to help swivel everything round. It doesn't need to be there. I'm planning to tack it all up and weld that straight afterwards. It doesn't need to be. Again, this is made out of sections you can buy and sections I've just cut up basically. It doesn't really owe me anything, I haven't really spent that much on it at all. Yeah, so it was originally a 2.5 inch Haywood and Scott system. You can buy the system now from Haywood and Scott. It's quite inexpensive as well. It's not dear at all. Like I say, I bought the centre section for about 120 quid or something, and it was shipped the next day. I just fancied having a go just because I've been into TIG welding the last couple of years. I'm trying to do the factory skill. Everything's either purged or I've used solar flux, depending on application. If things have been a bit difficult when I want to do some of the welding on the car. Obviously things are only just hung on there at the minute to get the route. It all follows the standard route. Things have got to be tapped and massaged a bit just to make sure they don't hit on anything. The standard, usually the aftermarket pipes come a bit closer to this, to the diff, but I've moved it over the other side a bit because every system I've ever had in a Subaru and my friend's Subarus always hits the diff, and it pisses me off. Excuse my French. So yeah, obviously things need a bit of cleaning up. I cleaned all that up a few years ago, but there you go. That's what happens when things are just sat about. It's always been garaged, this car as well, ever since I've had it. The person before kind of looked after it, but you know, obviously through the late 90s, early 2000s, you could pick these things up for nothing really, and people just used to just abuse them. They were just a cheap performance car. Loads of bits about for them, and that was the mentality. Obviously that's changing a bit now because it's becoming a bit more of a classic, I guess. I suppose there's still loads of them about though. We've got an eye back adjustable kit on there. I'll clean all that up and need some fine tuning on the adjustment. And obviously I've got the white line gear on there as well, front and rear anti-roll bar. Like the suspension system a couple of years ago was near enough new. As well as new shockers that were originally fitted to the STI version 5, so JDM. So you know, everything was brand new. Spent loads of money on it. Usual Subaru story. Yeah, underneath is only half the story, that's for sure. Yeah, so I'm going to get on, get this welded up. So I thought I'd just show you on the world's dirtiest floor. You're probably saying, well, why the hell didn't you TIG it? My TIG's somewhere else at the minute, all my equipment. It's just been too much of a pain in the arse to get everything back. And you know, I'm still trying to work at the minute as well, so I've got to sort of take the opportunities to get stuff out, get stuff done. I do want to get the car mapped and just use the car generally, but you know, welds come out alright with the MIG on. So try and use Argo Shield light and stainless wire. And it's not too bad. It'll probably, you know, probably won't last forever. And I have messed about with settings quite a bit. So even though you don't even get the shiniest weld, you never will with MIG stainless anyway. Just with how it's working, you can put even more argon onto it and sometimes purge in the middle of the pipe, but I just use solar flux and I don't use too hot setting. I can actually get quite a long bead on it, and some people have to pin tack this stuff, but I just, you know, I'm able to just sort of run a half decent bead with the jazz, if you can just set dial it right in. Yeah, real easy, no problem at all. So like I say, you know, it doesn't look as pretty as the TIG welding. I mean, I probably could have migged that on, to be honest with you. Most people do. Obviously, I had to make a coupler up on that as well, so it would have been a lot quicker if I just migged it together. A lot of standard pipes are only migged together, obviously on a machine, using a lot tighter tolerance control and material control that I ever will. But you know, it'll do for now. Like I said, there's a sleeve up there, sleeve joint, just to make things easier to come on and off. Anybody who's ever dealt with an awkwardly placed V-band will know what I'm talking about. I've got a V-band right up the top. It's easy enough to get to, but the last thing you want to do is trying to sort of bring the pipe, hold the pipe in a certain place, get the V-band on there, and try and get the rear flange on. I've just made it so you can just slip the thing in, get the rear flange on, and you can put the V-band section on separately. It makes it way easier, and I don't think there's any compromise, to be honest. To be honest with you, I've been told I don't even need a 3-inch section. I'm literally just doing it because I'm making it a bit future-proof for any future mods. Like I say, some of the TIG's got quite good these days. It's okay. Some people probably cry about it, but you know, I don't think it's too bad. That was sort of a reinitiation to the TIG, reintroduction to the TIG, and it wasn't the best. But I do find sometimes trying to weld those things on, they're not always easy to get the settings right. I had everything written down somewhere else. I should have just paid more attention to what I was doing, but it's good enough. And like I say, I've just come around thinking, right, just get it rigged on there, and I'll probably inspect everything in there with endoscope or whatever, or scope, and to make sure everything's okay. But yeah, I'm pretty confident that it'll be okay for now. Like I say, I've seen loads that have been stainless migged anyway. Excuse the state of the floor. Looks like there's been about 100 oil changes on this floor, don't there? But it's all gone onto the floor, but you know, the way it goes. Right, okay, I'm going to try and weld the rest of this out and then get it back on the car. I've got some brackets to put on that part of the section as well. There we go, it's all welded out. Doesn't look too bad. Obviously, it's not a TIG weld. Who cares at the end of the day? I suspect this thing's going to see a fair bit of abuse, and it's all about ease of use sometimes. Anyway, so yeah, use this sort of method on it. As I'm bringing the torch around, I tend to wash back, and I can keep a bead going. So, you know, it works quite well. A lot of people think you just blow a hole instantly in this stuff. If you've got the settings right, you won't. The settings I'm using are about 18 volts and about 300 inches per minute, I think it works out to be. And yeah, that works quite well on this stuff. No, I've never blown a hole in it. I've done quite a few sort of stainless repairs and on 1.5mm thick and even 1mm thick, and I've not blown a hole in it using those settings and using that technique. Obviously, sometimes it's better just to sort of light up, drag a bit, off, light up, drag a bit. I like to try and keep the bead going. I have even mounted it up in a rotator before and just kept it going all the way around. I don't have any of that with me today. I've literally got my lid, a welder, a hammer and a bit of patience. So yeah, that's all I've got to get the job done today. I'm going to get it rigged up again and see what it's like, so I can get these brackets in there. Right, so yeah, that's what I've achieved anyway. So that clamp isn't staying on there, but just used it to pull the slip joint in. Then I'll put like a Michelor on there or something. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It all clears, none of that moves up there, so nothing's going to hit. But I've tightened the V-band up on the back of the turbo. You can probably see it now on there, and you can see what I mean by the root of the system. By having that as well, I can actually change to a different turbo and just still use most of the system. So it makes it quite universal, which is quite good. I've still got to put this clamp on, sorry, this bracket on. I might find a better way of doing it by hanging it off of one of the gearbox bolts at the back and put like a stud bolt in, just because it might be a bit nicer, and plus it'll be pulled around with the engine and gearbox, as this will be. Obviously if I start putting it to random isolated, if it's a cross member, things might pull a bit different and it might stress the exhaust unnecessarily. Not that I'm particularly bothered, because the thing's probably going to get hammering anyway. So the joint I've left unwelded, that was an extra joint, is that one there. One of the main reasons is once it's all bolted up, you can get a final bit of rotation on that. It's a fairly square fitting to the pipe, so it's pretty much the same all the way around. What it means is you can just fine tune it to get everything lined up, make sure nothing hits. I can grab hold of the pipe. It's fairly rigid, to be fair, only because it's quite hard fixed at the front. The thing, it does still flex around the flexi. And there are no knocks from the back, from the silencer. Everything's bolted up with the gaskets in there. Decent bolts on there as well. Luckily I'd already fine-tuned it in the fitting for the welding, so now really it's kind of in its optimum position. And I'm just glad I got that in there, really, because I know what it's like. You weld something on the floor, put it back on the car, everything's moved a bit and it's sitting a lot further over. So I haven't got any of that now. Normally, as most GC8 Subaru owners will know, you just have that. You wouldn't have this. And that would make a centre section either 2.5 or 3, like it is now. The 3, usually the flange is at a slightly different angle, just because the flanges can be at a different angle, just because it's more difficult fitting everything in. With some 2.5s, you're sort of pushing your luck because of the poor fitment. But if it's well fitted, it'll all fit in. All clears the shield for the fuel tank as well at the back, because I've seen some before which hit that. I thought I had enough light down there. Anyway, yeah, so etc. really, and I've made that hanger fit better as well. So, and the silencer's hung well. Everything's hung bang in the middle. Nothing's strained and sat over, because there's nothing worse throwing it into a corner than the exhaust comes off the hangers. Like I say, got to put that bracket on. I might make something onto the cross member, but I might go up with that and just hang it off one of the gearbox bolts like this, but the other side just put a stud bolt in so it's pulled round. Obviously I'll have to bear in mind